I stood at the altar, palms sweaty, staring into Elise Grayson's eyes as she beamed up at me. Her white dress shimmered under the church lights, and the preacher's voice droned on about love and eternity. I nodded when I was supposed to, said, "I do," right on cue, but my mind wasn't there. It was 3 years back, tangled up with Sofia Reyes, the woman who'd ripped my heart out and left me scrambling to prove I didn't need her. Elise wasn't my soulmate, she was my strategy. Marrying her was supposed to be my checkmate against the past. That day, as the crowd clapped and Elise squeezed my hand, I told myself it worked. 5 years later, I wasn't so sure. Life with Elise had settled into a rhythm, predictable, quiet, like a song stuck on repeat. We ate dinner together most nights, her fork scraping the plate while I scrolled my phone. She'd ask about my day, and I'd give her half answers, my voice flat. "Fine," I'd say, or "same as always." She'd smile, that hopeful little curve of her lips, and I'd look away. I didn't hate her. She was kind, steady, the kind of woman people called a catch. But I didn't love her either, not the way she wanted me to. I'd never promised her that, not really. She'd been a lifeboat when I was drowning in Sofia's memory, and that was enough for me. She knew something was off, though. I'd catch her watching me sometimes, her brow creased, like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "You okay, Dan?" she'd ask, and I'd shrug it off. "Yeah, just tired." It wasn't a lie, not entirely. I was tired of pretending, tired of the charade, but I didn't feel guilty about it. Guilt was for people who'd made promises they couldn't keep. I'd never told Elise I'd give her my heart. I'd just let her assume it came with the ring. That morning, 5 years into our marriage, I was on autopilot. I kissed her cheek goodbye, habit, not affection, and headed out the door, briefcase in hand. Work was a blur of meetings and emails, nothing worth remembering. By 10, I needed a break, so I swung by the coffee shop 2 blocks from the office. It was a routine pit stop, black coffee, no sugar, in and out. I pushed through the glass door, the bell jingling above me, and stepped up to the counter. That's when I heard it, a laugh, sharp and familiar, cutting through the chatter like a blade. My chest tightened. I knew that sound. I turned my head slow, like I was afraid of what I'd find. There she was, Sofia Reyes, sitting at a table by the window, her dark hair spilling over her shoulders. She was leaning toward some friend I didn't recognize, her eyes crinkling as she laughed again. Time hadn't touched her. She looked exactly like she had the last time I'd seen her, radiant, alive, everything Elise wasn't. My breath caught, and I stood there, rooted to the spot, the barista's next, barely registering. I should have walked away. I should have grabbed my coffee and bolted back to the safety of my desk, my life, my wife. But I didn't. I watched her, my pulse hammering, as her friend said something that made her toss her head back. She hadn't seen me yet. I could still leave, pretend this never happened. But then her gaze shifted, casual at first, sweeping the room, until it landed on me. Her eyes widened, just for a second, before a slow smile spread across her face. It wasn't the polite kind you give a stranger. It was the kind that said she remembered everything. Every late-night talk, every fight, every touch. My mouth went dry. The barista called out again, louder this time, but I couldn't move. Sofia tilted her head, a question in her stare, and I felt the ground tilt beneath me. 5 years I'd spent burying her ghost, building a life to prove I was done with her. 5 years, and all it took was one look to unravel it. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Elise, checking in like she always did, but I didn't reach for it. Sofia's friend glanced my way, curious, but I didn't care. All I could think was, asterisk what now? Asterisk she was here real, not a memory I could shove into a box. And I knew, standing there with my heart pounding and my life waiting outside, that I wasn't going to walk away. I took a step toward her table, then another, the noise of the coffee shop fading into a hum. She didn't look away. Neither did I. Whatever came next, I was already in too deep to turn back. I sat across from Sofia in a diner 2 towns over, the vinyl booth creaking under me as I leaned forward. Her voice was like a song I'd forgotten the words to, familiar, intoxicating. She stirred her coffee, smirking as she recounted some story about a bad date she'd had last month. Guy showed up with a PowerPoint about his cat, she said, and I laughed, louder than I had in years. It felt good, like waking up after a long, dull sleep. Our knees brushed under the table, and neither of us pulled away. "So you're married," she said after a pause, her eyes flicking to my ring. No judgment, just curiosity. I nodded, keeping it casual. "Yeah, 5 years now. Elise." She's nice. Nice. The word hung there, limp and empty. Sophia raised an eyebrow, but she didn't push. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice dropping. And you're here with me because… I met her gaze, steady. Because I wanted to see you. It was the truth, raw and simple. She smiled, slow and knowing, and that was that. We didn't plan it, not out loud anyway. But 2 days later, I texted her a time and place. A park near her apartment, dusk, no one around. She showed up in a black jacket, her hair pulled back, and we walked for an hour, talking about nothing and everything. By the end, my hand was on her waist, her lips brushing mine, and I knew I wasn't stopping. The affair took off like a runaway train, late-night drives, hotel rooms booked under fake names, texts coded as work stuff, in case Elise ever peeked. I'd tell her I had a meeting, a deadline, anything, and she'd nod, trusting me like always. I didn't feel bad about it. Elise had been a fix, a way to patch the hole Sophia left. This was real. Sophia made me feel alive again. She'd tease me about my tie, call me out when I got too serious, and I'd fire back, the banter sharp and electric. One night, in a motel off the highway, she traced the lines of my jaw and asked, "You ever think about me?" After we ended, I didn't hesitate. Every damn day. She kissed me then, hard, like she'd been waiting for that answer. I didn't tell her I'd married Elise to forget her. Didn't need to. She got it, somehow, in the way she looked at me. Back home, things started shifting. Elise wasn't blind. I'd catch her staring when I came in late, her questions sharper than before. "How was work?" she'd ask, her tone too even, like she was testing me. "Fine," I'd mutter, avoiding her eyes. She'd nod, but her silence felt heavier each time. I'd shrug it off. She didn't know anything, couldn't know. I was careful. Burner phone for Sophia, cash for hotels, alibis locked tight. Still, her gaze lingered, and it started to itch under my skin. One night, I got cocky. Sophia and I hit a hotel bar an hour out. Dim lights, cheap whiskey, her laughing at some dumb joke I'd made. We stayed too long, lost track of time. I got home past midnight, tie loose, grinning like an idiot. Elise was in the kitchen, still up, a glass of water in her hand. "Late one," she said, not quite a question. "Yeah, project ran over." I lied, smooth as ever. She didn't push, just watched me hang my jacket on the rack. I went to bed, buzzing from Sophia, oblivious to the storm brewing. The next morning, I was rushing out, coffee, keys, same old drill. Elise was already gone, off to some yoga class she'd started. I grabbed my jacket from the rack, shoved my hand in the pocket for my phone, and froze. My fingers brushed paper, a receipt, crumpled but legible. Hotel bar, 2 drinks, last night's date stamped in black ink. My stomach dropped. I hadn't put it there. I'd tossed it in the trash at the bar, I was sure of it. Hadn't I? I stood there, heart pounding, replaying the night. Sophia handing me the tab, me laughing, tucking it somewhere. Maybe the pocket after all. But how had Elise? I turned, half expecting her to be standing there, but the house was empty. The receipt stared up at me, a tiny bomb waiting to blow. She'd found it, I knew she had. That's why she'd been up, why her eyes had followed me. I shoved it back in the pocket, my mind racing. She hadn't said anything yet, hadn't confronted me. What was she waiting for? I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door, the question clawing at me. Asterisk, what's she going to do? I had Sophia pressed against the passenger seat of my car, her breath hot against my neck as we laughed through a kiss. We'd parked in some empty lot off a back road, gravel crunching under the tires, headlights off, the world shut out. It was reckless, stupid even, but that's what made it electric. "You're insane," she muttered, her fingers tugging at my shirt, and I grinned, diving back in. For a second, it was just us, like the past 5 years had never happened. Then I saw it. A flicker in the rearview mirror, a shadow shifting just beyond the glass. I pulled back, my pulse spiking. "What?" Sophia asked, her voice soft, confused. I squinted into the dark, the mirror showing nothing but the empty lot now. "Thought I saw something," I said, shaking it off. She smirked, pulling me closer. "Scared of the dark, Carter?" I forced a laugh, kissing her again, but my eyes darted back to the mirror. Nothing, just my head playing tricks, or so I told myself. We stayed there another hour, tangled up and careless, before I dropped her off at her place, her goodbye kiss lingering on my lips as I drove home. The affair was a drug now, and I was hooked. Every spare minute, I found a way to see her. Lunch breaks, fake errands, nights I claimed work kept me late. I fed Elise the same old lines, and she'd nod, her face blank, like she'd stopped listening. I didn't care. Sophia was all that mattered. The way she challenged me, the way she made me feel like the man I used to be. But I had to keep her in the dark about some things. "How's the wife?" she'd ask sometimes, half teasing, and I'd shrug. "It's over in all but name. We're just coexisting." A lie, but close enough. I wasn't ready to tell her the marriage was still legally intact, that Elise and I shared a bed most nights. Sophia didn't need to know that, not yet. I thought I had it under control. I was wrong. That shadow in the mirror stuck with me, gnawing at the edges of my confidence. A few days later, I took Sophia to a hotel an hour out, same routine, fake name, cash up front. We were in the room, her head on my chest, when I caught myself glancing at the window, half expecting someone out there. "You're jumpy tonight," she said, tracing circles on my arm. "Just tired," I lied, pulling her closer. But I wasn't tired. I was wired, like a hunted animal sensing the trap. Elise was different too. She'd stopped asking questions, stopped hovering. Instead, she'd watch me, quiet, steady, her eyes like a camera I couldn't shut off. One morning, I caught her on the phone in the kitchen, her voice low. "Yeah, keep me posted," she said, hanging up fast when I walked in. "Who was that?" I asked casual. "Friend from yoga," she replied, too quick, and turned away. I didn't buy it, but I didn't push. I had bigger things to worry about, like keeping Sophia from asking too much, keeping this double life from crashing down. Then it happened. I was at work, scrolling through texts from Sophia. Asterisk miss you already, you idiot asterisk, when my phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. I opened it, and the words hit me like a punch. Asterisk I know where you were last night. Asterisk my stomach twisted. I stared at the screen, rereading it, waiting for it to make sense. Last night, Sophia and I at the hotel, room 214, her laughing as we stumbled through the door. No one knew. I'd covered every track. Hadn't I? I typed back, fingers shaky. Asterisk who is this? Asterisk no reply. I called the number, straight to a generic voicemail. My mind raced. Sophia. No, she'd never play games like this. A coworker? A prank. I scrolled through my contacts, double-checking, but nothing added up. Then I thought of Elise, her silence, that phone call, the way she'd looked at me lately. Could she? No, she didn't have it in her. Did she? I left work early, my head spinning. At home, Elise was on the couch, flipping through a magazine like nothing was wrong. "You're back early," she said, not looking up. "Yes, slow day," I muttered, studying her. Her face gave nothing away, just calm, steady Elise. I wanted to ask, to demand if she'd sent it, but how could I without tipping my hand? Instead, I grabbed a beer and sat across from her, the silence thick. My phone stayed quiet, no more texts, but the message burned in my pocket, a warning I couldn't shake. That night, I lay awake next to her, her breathing even while mine raced. Someone knew. Someone was watching. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd underestimated the woman I'd married, the woman I'd never bothered to love. I walked into the house that night, still buzzing from Sophia, when Elise hit me with it. She was waiting in the living room, sitting stiff on the couch, a stack of papers in her lap. No hello, no small talk, just her eyes, hard and unblinking, locked on me. "Sit down, Daniel," she said, her voice flat, like she was reading a script. I froze, my jacket half off, a bad feeling curling in my gut. That text from last week, "I know where you were," flashed in my head, but I'd convinced myself it was nothing. Now looking at her, I wasn't so sure. "What's this about?" I asked, tossing my keys on the table, trying to keep it light. She didn't answer, just slid the papers across the coffee table toward me. I picked them up, my hands steady until I saw what they were. Photos. Me and Sophia, kissing in a hotel lobby, walking out of a diner, her arm looped through mine in that damn park. Clear as day, time-stamped, undeniable. Next came receipts, hotels, bars, even a gas station near her place. A whole timeline of my lies, laid out like a prosecutor's case. My mouth went dry. "Where'd you get these?" I managed, my voice rough. She didn't flinch. "Does it matter? I've known for weeks. Hired someone to follow you." Her words were calm, clipped, like she'd rehearsed them. I stared at her, this woman I'd dismissed for years, and saw something new, steel where I'd only seen softness. "Elise, I started, but she cut me off. Don't. I'm not here for excuses. I'm here to offer you a deal." "A deal?" I blinked, thrown. She leaned forward, her hands clasped. We stay married on paper. You live your life, I live mine. Separate beds, separate worlds. Or I take this to a lawyer and you lose everything. House, savings, half your paycheck for years. Your choice. I gaped at her, the room tilting. She wasn't crying, wasn't yelling, just sitting there, cold as ice, holding my life in her hands. I'd underestimated her badly. I should have been scared, but instead, I felt a twisted relief. Fine, I said, tossing the photos back on the table. Separate lives. Done. I thought I'd won, freedom without the mess of a divorce. She nodded, stood, and walked out of the room, leaving me with the evidence and a smug grin I couldn't hide. I'd keep Sophia, keep my comfort, and Elise would stay a ghost in my orbit. Perfect. The next day, I met Sophia at her place, spinning the story I'd rehearsed. It's over with Elise, I said, lounging on her couch, her head on my shoulder. We're done, just sorting out the paperwork. A half-truth, close enough to sell. She looked up at me, her eyes searching. Really? You're free? I nodded, kissing her forehead. Yeah, babe. All yours. She smiled, tentative but warm, and I thought I'd pulled it off. It unraveled 2 nights later. We were at a bar, her laughing at some dumb joke, when my phone rang, Elise, asking about a bill we still shared. I stepped outside, kept it quick, but when I came back, Sophia's face had changed. Who was that? She asked, her tone sharp. Just a friend. I lied, but she wasn't buying it. A friend named Elise? I heard you, Daniel. You're still tied to her, still married. I scrambled, words tumbling out. It's not like that, legal stuff, that's all. She cut me off, standing. You lied to me. Again. I'm not some side piece you string along. Before I could stop her, she grabbed her bag and walked out, leaving me at the table, drink untouched, heart pounding. I tried calling her, once, twice, 10 times. No answer. Texts went unread. She was gone, and the hole she left hit me harder than I'd expected. I drove home, numb, figuring I'd deal with it tomorrow. But when I walked in, the house felt wrong, too quiet, too still. Elise's shoes weren't by the door. I checked the bedroom. Her side of the closet was half empty, a few hangers swaying like they'd been yanked in a hurry. On the bed was a note, her handwriting neat and sharp. Asterisk, you're not the only one who can play this game. Asterisk. I stared at it, my mind blank, then raced through the house, bathroom, kitchen, garage. Her car was gone. Her phone went straight to voicemail. She'd left, not just the room this time, but me, and that cryptic line burned into me. Play this game. What game? I sank onto the couch, the silence pressing in, and realized I didn't know her at all. Not anymore. She'd outmaneuvered me, and I had no idea what she was planning next. I saw her before she saw me. Elise, sitting across a restaurant table from some guy I didn't know, her laughter cutting through the hum of the crowd. It was a Thursday night, and I'd only stopped in for takeout, too tired to cook, too restless to stay home. But there she was, glowing, her hair loose, her smile real in a way I'd never made it. The guy leaned in, charming, all easy grins and attentive nods, and she touched his arm like it was the most natural thing. I stood there, bag of food in hand, feeling like I'd been punched. She'd been gone a week since that note, asterisk, you're not the only one who can play this game, asterisk, and I'd spent it spinning. I'd called her, left voicemails she ignored, even drove by her yoga studio like some creep. Nothing. Now here she was thriving, while I unraveled. I should have walked out, but my feet wouldn't move. The guy said something, and she laughed again, bright, unguarded, a sound I hadn't heard from her in years. It hit me then. She didn't need me anymore. Maybe she never had. I got out of there before she could spot me, the takeout cold by the time I reached home. The house was a tomb, empty, silent, mocking me with every step. I dropped the bag on the counter and pulled out my phone, scrolling to Sophia's name. She'd walked out after that bar fight, after she'd caught my lie about Elise, and I'd been too stubborn to chase her then. But seeing Elise move on flipped a switch. I needed Sophia back, needed something to hold on to. I called her, pacing the kitchen, each ring a plea. Pick up, I muttered, but it went to voicemail. Her voice, cool and clipped, leave a message, was all I got. Soph, it's me, I said, my voice cracking. I messed up. I'm done with Elise, for real this time. Please, just talk to me. She called back an hour later, and my heart leapt until I heard her tone. Daniel, stop, she said, no warmth, no give. I'm not doing this again. You don't love me. You love what I do for you. There's a difference. I tried to argue, words spilling out. I'll fix it, I swear. I'll leave her, file tomorrow. She cut me off. You're still married. You lied to me, used me, just like you used her. I deserve better. The line went dead, and I stared at the phone, her words slicing through me. She was right, and I hated her for it. I sank onto the couch, the weight of it all crashing down. Elise had her new life, Sophia had her dignity, and I had nothing. I thought back to that text weeks ago, asterisk, I know where you were last night, asterisk, the one that started my spiral. I'd assumed it was a fluke, a prank, but now it clicked. A memory flickered. Elise on the phone, days before, her voice low. Yeah, send it tonight, she'd said, hanging up when I walked in. She'd hired that investigator, Ray, she'd called him, and he hadn't just taken pictures. He'd sent that text on her orders to rattle me, to watch me squirm. She'd played me from the start, and I'd been too arrogant to see it. I grabbed a photo from the shelf, an old one of Sophia, back when we were us. Her smile mocked me now, a reminder of what I'd thrown away. I'd married Elise to bury her, chased her to feel alive, and lost them both because I couldn't see past myself. The house creaked around me, empty as my chest, and I dialed Sophia again, one last desperate shot. It rang, and went silent. No voicemail this time, just a void. I sat there in the dark, the photo slipping from my hand. I'd built this life on lies, thinking I could control it all, but I'd controlled nothing. Elise had won. Sophia had walked. And I was left here, a hollow man with no one to blame but the guy staring back in the mirror. Hey, if you've stuck with me through Daniel's mess, hit that like button and let me know what you think in the comments. Did he get what he deserved, or should he get a shot at redemption? Subscribe for more stories like this, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one.